The birdsong this morning is beautiful, which I'm really grateful for because I have to do not so beautiful tasks. I have to deal with all the weeds in this bed. I got to get that out so that we can plant some potatoes. It's time to transplant those hardened off seedlings that we started about 6 weeks ago, and I've got to get my onion sets in the ground. Let's get to work. That's garlic. We're gonna transplant him. Well, I wasn't really expecting to break my shovel today, but I think that's proof that we've worked hard. So let's go into the fun stuff. Let's plant some potatoes. I'm pulling back the mulch, which prevents weed and soil erosion. I mark where the trench will go. Then really try to break up that soil. I'm aiming for a trench about 4 to 6 inches deep. I learned to plant potatoes from my grandpa. He taught me to rub off all the sprouts but one to get bigger, stronger plants, which also means larger potatoes. Space the potatoes about 8 to 12 inches apart. Then cover them over. Repeat this process until all your potatoes are planted. Potatoes are a favorite of mine, so I'm planting a lot, and we'll plant another round of Yukon Golds in a couple of days after I buy a new shovel and finish clearing the last bed. A typical yield for potatoes is 3 to 5 pounds per plant. I got that in Washington where I grew up, but I haven't quite mastered it here in Texas. I'm not sure if it's the heat, the soil, the pH, if I need to find a new variety of potato, but fingers crossed that this year I get a bumper crop of potatoes. All right, we got our potatoes planted, and now it's time to do some onion sets. I did start some onions from seed earlier this year. I started them in the fall. October is when I started the seeds, and I transplanted them out early January. But I don't know how good they're doing because look, I can't even see them on this edge. Look, here's like, these are my ittle bittle onions from seed. So we're gonna hedge our bets and plant some sets. That rhymed and I didn't mean to. We're gonna hedge our bets and plant some sets. I'm moving back the soil and making a trench. Find a Fireant nest.
The anthill.
I'm mentally retracing where I left my ant control while I finish making the trenches. And then I find another mound. We've got some active fire ants, so I'm gonna treat with this. Oop, falling over. This, it has, the active ingredient is spinosad, and how I found it was I looked up, every time I have a problem, I go through the county extension office or an agricultural extension office and I look up what they recommend. And this is It's organic and it's supposed to work within 24 hours. So all I do is I follow the directions on the package. It was like a tablespoon of this liquid to a quart of water, and then you drench the mound and it's supposed to kill it within 24 hours. So that's what we're gonna do. Time to plant. So all we're gonna do, the pointy part comes up, the part with the little roots or the hairs at the bottom, that goes down. And I want big onions, so I'm gonna plant them this far apart so that they can get, I want them to get about 4 inches across, you know, 3 to 4 inches across. So I add about an inch or two to that. So this would also be a great thing to have kids help with. These are really big, so they don't lose them. You can give them a stick to measure how far apart they're putting them. It's gonna take longer with kids, but it's worth it. Onions need to be planted shallowly with their tops just below the surface. Space them 4 to 6 inches apart for big onions. If you plant them closer, just know that you're gonna get smaller bulbs. You can harvest every other one in a thinning process and use the thinnings as green onions, and that's worked well for me in the past. Done. Well, I'm tuckered out. I still have plenty more to do, but I'm calling it a day. I think weeding hard enough to break a shovel, finding a couple Fireant hills, getting some taters planted and some onions in means you're allowed to have a little break. So I will give you another video in a couple of days to finish up this week's chores. But for now, tell yourself good job and sit down and enjoy the beautiful things in the garden. Bye.